rescue, kind of a rescue process. I've been through that in 2004 and 5 when I returned right to the Lakers. And even though, you know, my fiance is part of that family and part of the hierarchy in that organization, I really didn't want to get pulled in.
You've been linked subsequently to some possible management possibilities. Right. Obviously, the Seattle situation didn't work out.
Right.
What would appeal to you about management if that opportunity presented itself?
You know, the triangle offense, the sideline triangle that we promoted all those years and thought was such a fine, you know, system, has really been denigrated, I think, over the last 3 or 4 seasons. You know, they laid it on Kurt Rambis, who was in Minnesota, coaching the Minnesota Timberwolves, that it didn't work for him. Now, you know, Kurt did not run basically the triangle offense, but a combination of offenses, including Rick Adelman's, you know, type of offense. And, you know, Bill Cartwright ran the triangle offense here when he was coaching the Chicago Bulls. And Jim Clemens, an assistant coach I had, went to Dallas and did not have a long tenure there, but he did not run the triangle offense. But a lot of people point to all those situations as, you know, too difficult to run and too difficult an offense for present day NBA basketball. And I don't think it's true. And I think that basketball is still basketball, and, you know, the principles of offense are still the same. And there's a group of people would be willing to listen to that, and I could format a kind of a group that could promote that type of basketball, because I think it's advantageous. We do so many things in the NBA now off the dribble and off screen rolls, and not everybody's involved in the play. Whereas, you know, in the system that I ran, and Tex Winter was here with me and promoted that type of offense, everybody was involved. It was a very integral team offense, which got everybody doing a job of being a playmaker. They couldn't just be an individual scorer or three-point shooter or a screener. They had to play all the roles, and I thought that was very good, and I thought it's appropriate for the game.
Well, good luck with whatever the future holds.
Thanks.
You mentioned that it's a personal book, and that was one thing that you and I chatted about in the back room. To me, and I haven't read all of Phil's books, which I also told him, that's what jumps out to me about this endeavor, is it's clearly your most revealing and personal book. You talk at length about your parents. Your brother Joe has a small role in the book, which I don't remember in the past. There's a beautiful anecdote of his children making him a mixtape for when he travels from Montana to LA for the first time to go coach the Lakers, and I won't ruin the moment, but it's a wonderful anecdote. And then you also share when you talked to the Lakers in the 2011 playoffs against the Mavericks about dealing with prostate cancer. And what I liked about how you introduced that anecdote was that you questioned whether it was the right thing to do, not only at that time, but it sounds like you're still wrestling with whether or not that was the right thing to do. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was an interesting process, going through a multiple period of time, having multiple tests, a PSA test that goes along with prostate problems, which is not really altogether the true test of prostate cancer. And having a urologist that said, you know, don't worry about it, we'll take some biopsy the next time. And then the next time came, and finally we did a biopsy in March of 2011. And the biopsy came back, and you know, it proved positive. So I had to sit on that, and we had to try and take a situational look at what was going to be the next step. The process was also to start dealing with some hormonal drugs that would delay testosterone in my body, which is promoting and feeds prostate cancer. And we went through the end of the season, in which we'd won 17 out of 18 games in that process, to losing, I don't know, I think we lost 5 out of our last 8 games. And we went from having a chance to be first place to winning second place in the conference. Relatively good record, 57 wins. Not the 60 that I kind of held out as a standard for this team. And we went into the playoffs against New Orleans, not playing as well as we wanted to play. Chris Paul was a mighty factor, which he can be. in this first series of games. And one of our leaders of the team spoke up and said, I don't think, everybody's, giving the most they can give into what we're trying to accomplish here. I think we're distracted. I think some of our players are thinking about next year's contract. We have a lot of kids. We had a big turnover between our championship teams. We had 5 new players on that team. And, at that point, I saw the direction he was going, and I stepped in and just said, I've been, part of having something else on my mind other than winning because of this situation I'm in. Explained it to them in kind of an emotional setting and asked them not to speak about it, in which they did not. But it kind of took away kind of maybe that attitude that I thought maybe they were looking for me to push into a sympathetic attitude, and maybe they felt like I was a lame duck. I was the lame duck going on out. And obviously we had finished up with New Orleans. We won that series, and we went into the next series and got literally swept by Dallas. I had an operation 2 weeks later, a week and a half later after that series was over. And they all stayed in touch with me, the players, which I thought was very good. I never could get a good read on whether that was the appropriate thing to do, but I felt like intuitively it was, and I've always trusted my inner voice. And that's one of the things I believe in.
And your health now?
Relatively good. It's still a trial. They're still, looking after this as we go along.
One of the things that's getting a lot of headlines, obviously, is finally the comparisons between Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Fascinating topic. Don't worry, we'll get to Derrick Rose in a second. I think this has been a little misconstrued. It's not like you're picking one over the other. You're just talking about some similarities and differences. So why did you resist doing this until this point? There was a great anecdote. Mike Bresnahan, the Lakers beat writer, wrote a first-person piece saying he tried to get you to make this comparison throughout the entire time that he covered you, and to no avail. So why did you wait to this point, and was that difficult for you to write about those two players?
Well, yes, it is. It's difficult because they're just a standard that's above in all cases. When I came to the Chicago Bulls, Jerry Krause, the general manager, and I talked a lot about our strategy towards winning. And he was always quick to tell me, there's never been a team driven by a two guard that's won a championship in the NBA. You look at all the teams that have won. They've had, Cousy and Russell, and they've had, Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you got Walt Frazier and Willis Reed, and you had the Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, group. But there's never been a two guard that's been able to be the dominant force on the team that's won. And the reality is that I was able to have 11 championships working with two guards in each case. Now, that taking away a little bit of something from Shaquille O'Neal is pretty darn good center, right? But Kobe was still a dominant force on that team and just coming into his own. But it says something about the dynamism of these two guards that, in fact, Michael compares Kobe as the only one that he could really say met his standards as a player and a guy that worked hard at his game. And that's very true. They worked very hard. They're dedicated. And so I talked about that part of their characteristic that is so similar, but then I make comparison about Michael's leadership, which he had a little better temperament about because I got here, he's 27. He had gone through the University of North Carolina program. He had Sam Perkins and James Worthy on that team that won a championship as a freshman. He had made the key shot. The joke was, of course, that who could hold Michael Jordan under 20 points? Nobody but Dean Smith, because his coach would sit him, right? So Michael had to pay allegiance to a system and to a college that had great teams. And so he was willing and able to slip into what I asked him to do and we asked him to conform to run this offense that we were going to run. He had averaged 37, 38 points a game previous to that, and I asked him to point blank not win a championship in scoring. I said, I don't think there's been a scoring leader that's won a championship since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I think he said maybe Rick Barry. But then he said, I don't think it's going to be any problem. I can average 32 points a game and still win a scoring championship. So he had it all figured out. But I think the idea got to him that, hey, the ball's got to be distributed and other guys have to touch the ball, and we have to have ability for other people to contribute, because our defenses that are going against us can't all be focused on you, because we run against the famous Jordan rules defense that the Detroit Pistons had for the last 3 years and failed. So he was capable of doing that. Whereas Kobe was 21 when I got to the Lakers. He was a kid developing, never played college basketball, been a high school basketball player that could do what he wanted to do basically on the floor. And I asked him to be a point guard or to the lead guard, set up an offense that was going to feature Shaquille O'Neal. So he had to take a different role entirely. So we talk about those comparisons, and I think it comes out pretty even for both of them.